You wanna go?
Oh,
How you doing, Mikki G?
I'm great. I'm in a vibe now because you played it and I got to dance again. So I like it.
Yep, I
That was
just thought
pretty
I'd
good.
add that little tidbit in there.
Yeah, that was pretty
Yes,
good.
yes. So thank you for coming today, Mikki G. I
Sure.
appreciate it. And thank you, everybody out there in TV land, deciding to stop by to see what we're gabbing about today on Gab with Goldnbronze. We do appreciate it. We realize that there's many other places you could be right now, but you decided to sit in front of the TV and see what Gab with Goldnbronze is all about today. And we do appreciate it very much. GAB with Goldnbronze is a sponsor of Golden Swan Cadre, which is a domestic 501c3 nonprofit organization that advocates against domestic violence towards women. Not only that, they advocate for women's health issues, including women's maternity health, mental health, self-care, and mindfulness. And we solicit your donations with that because what we do is when ladies leave those centers, they are referred to us to help them furnish their apartments or decor their apartments or buy clothing for their kids or whatever their needs list is. We dig deep into our pockets to try to make that happen for them. And it does take money, so we solicit your help with that, please. If you'd like to know more about Golden Swan Cadre, you can go to www.goldenswancadre.com. Look for us on Instagram and Facebook. Scroll, stroll, troll, whatever you want to call it, and see what we're all about. And then dig deep into your heart and your pockets. $1 to $5, we don't care. It all adds up. Just as long as we can help other women, we appreciate it very much. And that being said, we thought we would have some fun topics today. And we are starting out with who are the Karens in the world? We know about those ladies that are busybodies that don't mind their own business. They always are in everybody else's business, trying to be law enforcement, neighborhood enforcement, or just plain old nosy people. Some of them seem very angry. Of course, all Karens are not that way. No. But you have some out there that are. So we're here to talk about them today.
Oh, I can't wait.
I had to laugh. Okay, we will move right along. Why is that so funny to her? Well, do your homework. Might figure that one out. The term Karen has become a widely recognized internet slang, particularly in the last decade, to describe a certain stereotype, as I just mentioned, usually applied to middle-aged women, middle-aged women and who feel and sometimes confrontational women, often from Western countries like the United States. The Karen archetype is generally characterized by the following traits. They feel a sense of entitlement. Karen is often used to describe someone who is demanding, self-righteous, and expects special treatment, sometimes at the expense of others. I really wish they would change that to something else, but anyway, that's the slang name. They feel entitled and they feel like they should get special treatment, sometimes at the expense of others, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness. What do we do with
Call
this?
them
What do
Becky.
we do with the Karens?
Call them Becky, call them Nancy, call them whatever.
No offense to the Beckys and Nancy's out there. Oh boy.
Right.
What do we say about the Karens? My goodness. The busybodies, as they used to be called.
Do you have anything to say?
Well, the quintessential Karen.
They're often, as we
sorry, we got a little. But the quintessential Karen, in my opinion, is Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched. Remember Mrs. Kravitz? She always inserted herself into what was going on. She felt it her business to patrol the neighborhood, especially that Stevens house. Weird things are going on over there, and she wanted to investigate and make sure things were right at that house. So she, to me, is the first quintessential Karen.
Yeah, wasn't it Gladys Kravitz or something
Kravitz,
like that?
yes.
Was her name?
Yes. Gladys and Abner.
Yeah. Yes. And we just dated ourselves.
Yeah.
No, but they're in reruns, right? So
that's right.
I think there is temptation. Yeah. A lot of those old shows, and I'm digressing a little bit, but a lot of those old shows, some even before our time, are the most interesting nowadays to watch. That's like real TV, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, some of these Karens are overly assertive. I mean, over the top assertive. Karens are known for complaining to authority figures such as managers in retail stores, police officers, guard dogs, whoever they can get to sick on somebody. That's what they do, especially over minor issues in a way that seems excessive and is very unjustified. They're very, very assertive personalities, and they give all the Karens a bad name. They have confrontational behavior. A Karen might escalate situations unnecessarily, often calling for a manager, as we mentioned, over stupid minor stuff. A police officer to arrest somebody over something that they're not even breaking the law doing. Just in everyday situations where such responses seem so out of proportion. They just are over the top people with perceived privilege. The term is frequently applied in the context of racial privilege, particularly when white women are seen as using their status to assert power over others, especially people of color. And we'll go get a little further. So that's really funny. They really, really like to assert power over minorities for whatever reason. I don't know what that perceived privilege comes from, but the term Karen gained popularity, especially in the context of social justice issues, with viral videos and social media posts highlighting instances where individuals, often women, were perceived to have acted in discriminatory, overbearing, and unreasonable ways. You know, I don't know what it is about these women that they feel like they have privilege over everybody, regardless. Everybody that's a minority, rather, is what it says in the statistical data. That's not me saying that. That's not Mikki G saying that. We do research on just about every topic that we attempt to broach, and that's what the data states. So since we're not those people, we can't really delve into what makes them tick. But it's important to note that while these Karens are widely recognized and used, its overuse or misuse can sometimes be very harmful and unfair to other people, getting some people arrested or just stereotyped and mistreated because some privileged person exerted her privilege, I guess is what you could call it in a nutshell, reducing individuals to stereotypes and detracting from real issues. The term has been criticized by being sexist or ageist in some contexts, but usually we find that the women that are doing these things are Western cultured women, middle age, you
know. Yes. Well, while you were saying that, I was thinking, I wonder, are there case studies on these women who are called Karens. I think about there was a little girl, I think, selling lemonade, and a Karen approached her asking her, does she have a permit for that? Now, what is the trauma on this little girl that this grown woman is approaching her about a permit, and the young lady's trying to just make a little money? Just like when we were little kids, and yeah, like when we were little kids and trying to sell on the, make a little money. And so this woman, this whole grown woman, comes to this child and asks her where her permit is. And so the trauma on that child who's just trying to do something innocent, that's disturbing. And then, of course, like you said, the police have been called on people for just barbecuing, in a park, having a barbecue, having a cookout, and enjoying their family and friends. Yet this Karen comes over and decides to insert herself to ask questions. Why are you here? What are you doing over here? And people are trying to get her to exit stage left, but she won't leave. She's like a fly at a cookout. You can't get her to leave. And I wonder mentally, what is going on with people who do that?
There's something going on with them. Exactly. There's a lot of, mental people walking around here, but I saw one where you mentioned the barbecue, and I saw one where a family had moved to a new neighborhood, and they had every right to be there. Is the person, the Karen. They purchased a home in that neighborhood. There was a pond, and they were over there with the little kids, and you talked about the trauma to the children, doing some fishing. And the lady came over there. What are you doing here? Do you have a permit to fish in this pond? Where do you live? Well, that's none of your business, lady. I don't feel like I have to give you my address,
Right.
And
right.
she just kept on and on and on. I can't believe you live here. Like, what's the deal? And called the police on them. And that kind of thing with the children, no regard to the children, can be very traumatizing to the children. People don't realize what they are doing when there's children involved. Those children may, for the rest of their life, have fear towards people that look like that Karen.
Right. Yes, and then if I don't know if these people were people of color and the Karen was not, I don't know. I'm assuming that. But then there's already generational trauma that people of color are dealing with anyway. And then to see it in living color, a person coming at you with things that you have heard about, that's hard, especially for those babies. The adults are going to feel the trauma. And of course, even more so, their children who are attacked by this type person.
There is a movie on Netflix called There's Two. And I know that I've seen them both. And I don't know if you have. I know you were going to watch them. One is just called Karen. And it is about Karen that harassed a young Black family that bought a home in their neighborhood, and she was upset that they were there. So she complained about every little thing that they did, took it upon herself to make it her issue. And then there was one that someone decided that was a Black Karen, right? And it was the same situation, the reverse. So, but statistically, the Karens are from the United States, European descent, that feel the sense of entitlement, and for that they feel like they can be judge and jury, in certain situations. And I do think there has to be some sort of emotional, my personal opinion, I don't have no data. I have no data to back this up. It's my opinion that there is something emotionally going on with people like that assert themselves into total strangers' lifestyles and business from a sense of just feeling entitled. And that causes emotional abuse to children and to grown people too. Like, believe it or not, you might go around somewhat paranoid that anything that we say or do or where we go might create some Karen to come out from the woodwork and just ruin our lives from that moment forward. And that is a form of emotional abuse. It's not interpartner. It's just some stranger asserting a form of abuse onto another total stranger emotionally. So yes, I wanted to bring that up. Also, we'll take a break and then I'll finish when we come back. Thank you for returning. So we just wanted to mention that because we see a lot of this on the news. We see a lot of this on social media about people asserting themselves into other people's lifestyles and business involuntarily and unwanted. And it does create emotional abuse to the parties involved. And that is domestic abuse. And so we thought that's one of our initiatives as well. We talk about forms of abuse and we would like to bring that up. But moving along, we had a question about should single people give relationship advice? These are topics that we've investigated or done our research on rather and had communication with each other about. And that would depend on the individual's experience with relationships, wisdom, and perspective rather than their current relationship status. So I thought it was very interesting because I think that if a person is wise, whether they're married or not, have been or not, that they doesn't mean that they can't give someone else relationship advice if it is productive, positive advice, nothing harmful or negative or that would cause chaos in someone's life. And so single people may have been in relationships before. Just because they're single at the moment doesn't mean that they've never had a relationship, or they may have learned from observing others' relationships. Reading, they can read and study up on relationship dynamics. Their insight can be valuable even if they're not currently in a relationship. That does not mean that they're not qualified, in my opinion, to give relationship advice. So on that experience factor, what do you think about that?
I think the emotional intelligence is important. Like you said, they could be reading up on something, studying something, observing something, because a lot of times that's the way we learn. We're observing, we're reading, we're listening to documentaries, we're taking in information that might be able to help someone. Now, I think as much as someone who needs the advice or is seeking the advice, as much as they want to tell or share with that person, then that person can give advice based on that. But there are some things that couples don't share, and that person giving the advice may not have all the information. But with the information that they have, they can probably give good advice if they are emotionally intelligent.
Right. And so to piggyback on that, I would think that if the advice was sought by the person who's in the relationship, they should give all the backstory in order for them to to receive the correct advice. They have to be transparent about what the relationship is between them and their partner. You're right. You can't give valid relationship advice if somebody's holding back information. So I think if you're going to seek it from someone, you should be transparent and tell them the whole story so they can give you advice based on what's really going on. I think it's regardless of their relationship status, a person with emotional intelligence and maturity can offer meaningful advice based on their empathy, understanding, and solid communication principles. So it's not always what you say, but how you say it, your deliverance, whether or not it's received the way that you anticipate that it should be. A lot of times people will give you advice and it's the delivery of it. It's that projects something maybe differently than what they are trying to project to you. And in that case, it's not it's not going to hold any validity with the receiver. Yeah.
Sometimes they can see something. They may see one spouse or one person in the relationship do something very foul to the other one in public in front of people, and they may pull someone aside and say, listen, that wasn't really cool what happened, what you did. Maybe if you had said it this way or took them home and talked to them in private. This is unsolicited advice, but it's not sought after advice, but it's something someone saw that they wanted to pull that person aside and give them some advice because of how it looked to them and other people around that was disturbing to them. And so they can also offer advice in those situations.
And I absolutely agree. I think if it is a man that is doing it, it should be another man that brings it to his attention and not a woman, and vice versa. I think if it's a female that is doing it to projecting negatively to the man, then the observer, like yourself or myself or any female that observes us, might want to pull her aside and say, hey, what was that all about? Sometimes people will tell you to butt out. If it's unsolicited, then that's all you can do is walk away. If they didn't ask for your advice, and I'm kind of cautious about giving advice to people unsolicited. I may have my own thinking about the situation, but I'm pretty closed mouth. If they don't ask, I'm not offering. But that is just me. I'm not comfortable doing it if someone doesn't ask. But some single people, like relationship counselors or therapists, may be trained professionals in the field of relationships, making their advice more credible than somebody like yourself or myself, and effective even though they are not currently in a partnership, just because they have that professional background in like we're going to have next week a relationship strategist. Somebody like that might be able to deliver that message to someone unsolicited and it's received. If that person knows that is their profession, they're more apt to take their advice regardless to their relationship status over somebody that is single, And sometimes if you're single, but you're not married, you're engaged, that information is not that advice still may not be received from the other person, especially if they are married. A lot of married people, unfortunately, don't want to take any advice from a single person. And I've seen myself on the internet, there's a stigma to being single, and it's okay to be single. Everybody is not meant to be married. Maybe everybody doesn't want to be married. Doesn't mean that you don't have knowledge of relationships or can offer expertise, but there is a stigma that if you're single, something's wrong with you because you're not in a relationship. Sometimes, that baffles me that people think that way, but I've seen it and read it many, many times. And we'll further get into that in just a moment. Okay, thank you, everybody. So, Mikki, what do you think about what I just said about sometimes it's received from someone that's their profession, even if it's unsolicited? And also, what do you think about, I'm going to give you the time to say it, about people that feel like there's something wrong with you if you're single, like it's required to be in a relationship?
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, there's nothing wrong with being single. But let's say the person has no relationship, they have no relationship experience, and they're not a trained professional. They're just someone who inserts themselves in and wants to tell you what to do with your relationship. I would be less apt to listen to them. Let's say I have 25 years marriage experience. They just got engaged and they're in their 20s and I'm in my 40s. Sometimes it's a matter of how much time you've had to accumulate experience, how much time you've had to accumulate the wisdom. And so that would be a thing for me. Also, I think it depends on the relationship you have with the person. Someone may have known you your whole life, a close friend that might pull you aside, say, I've never known you to act this way. What's going on with you? Because I noticed this change and that change, and you're treating this guy or this person in a way that I've never seen you act. What's going on? I can see in those situations, and that might be a person who's single or a person who's had marital experience or a trained professional. Sometimes proximity to you, a trusted person who can call you on your stuff.
Right. Absolutely. Yes, I can see that, Mikki, if you know that person well. So I guess basically it would be prudent not to mention it to someone or pull someone aside if you really don't know them that well. That's not going to be perceived well, regardless to whether you're in a relationship or not, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah. There's certain circumstances where you can receive it because the person who's getting the advice, they have to be able to receive what you're saying. And sometimes they'll tell half of it to make themselves look good and the other person look bad. And so you don't know. It's like
earlier.
Yeah, it's like putting your hand in the lion's mouth.
Yes. And then oftentimes you can end up being the bad person trying to do good, by just giving that advice. So I guess, it's best to wait until it's solicited, maybe. I don't know. But what do you think about, you just quickly touched on that one subject that I wanted to elaborate on, which is oftentimes people won't receive information from a single person because they think there's something wrong with you if you're not in a relationship. And not everybody wants to be in one. It doesn't mean that you don't have experience or knowledge. And there may be some reason that person has opted out for the moment. It might be temporarily because of some sort of relationship problem, like we talked about during the previous shows, emotional, physical, financial, some sort of unfortunate disadvantage that they had in a relationship. What do you think about that? I've seen it. Well, what's wrong with you? You're single.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's nothing wrong with being single, and people are single for various reasons. Some people are single by choice. They just they're not interested in a relationship. Some people haven't found the right person. Some people are widowed or widowers, divorced, all kinds of things why people might be single. You can't invalidate their knowledge, their wisdom, or their experience based on their current status. So
right.
I
doesn't mean that they don't have knowledge. You're right.
Yeah, and they may have
watched more knowledge than you can ever imagine, right?
right. And they may have observed from the inside, let's say their parents, a very good, healthy marriage. They saw affection, they saw respect, they saw the way they communicated. Maybe sometimes parents communicate differently behind closed doors, but they can see them maybe in a disagreement and there was no yelling, there was no hitting or anything like that. There was just communication. And so if they witness that, then they have taken some nuggets of knowledge for themselves that they can share with someone else.
Exactly. So however, personal experience in maintaining a relationship can provide practical insight, and single individuals might not have that, and they might have that practical insight. That's basically what we are saying. Someone currently in a healthy relationship might provide advice rooted in real-time dynamics. And that goes to what Mikki G just said, by their experience, something that they have been through, witnessed, or even witnessed in your relationship and saw that the dynamic had changed, or in that particular relationship, not yours, that they have seen dynamics within that relationship change and pull someone aside, and that they know well and feel comfortable with saying, hey, what's going on with you? I see that you responded this way to what that person said. And maybe I don't think they meant it the way that you received it. So is there something going on that we need to talk about that might open up a door for communication? to find out really if there is anything going on. And sometimes it's a red flag to the person that you pull aside because maybe their behavior was inappropriate. They reacted negatively and didn't realize that they had done so. And we often say that the abuser sometimes doesn't realize that they are the abuser. Nobody's called them out. Nobody's told them you're emasculating. Nobody's told them that you're verbally abusive. That to them is a norm. Just she mentioned using a good mother-father dynamic, but it also is the reverse as well. You could have one where it's not that dynamic, and that transcends into your relationship because you think it's the norm to talk to your partner that way. And the observant person sees it as not normal and may pull you aside and say, hey, what's going on? But to the person doing it, it's all normal to them. And that might be like an indicator for that person that maybe they need to check themselves and get some help or look at the person in the mirror. Sometimes we have to do that to see if, is it us? Are we the common denominator? Or what? Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so thanks for joining us back. So I'm going to ask Mikki to elaborate briefly on my last point, and then I have another one, and then we have some more to say about it.
Okay. You were saying sometimes you have to look at the person in the mirror because you might be the common denominator. If you have these patterns and these different relationships that you're in, you know, if you go over to the left, you're there. If you go to the right, you're there. If you see Peter, you're there. If you see Paul, you're there. So you carry yourself in every relationship. And it might be time for you to do some self-evaluation to see, why do my relationships keep failing? Am I choosing the same kind of person, or am I the same kind of person and I need to change?
Exactly. I know someone that actually came to me and said, do you remember so and so and so? And I was like, yeah. Well, they fell out. And then I said, well, what about you and so and so? They fell out. And then it was another person, they fell out. And that person has fallen out with me. And I was like, okay, there's a common denominator. It's not me. I can happen to keep my friends for years. But if one person falls out with everyone that they befriend, then that's when it's time to look in the mirror. Time to look in the mirror. But I didn't say anything. I told you I am one of those that I listened, and that was the perfect opportunity, but I didn't feel comfortable saying what I really thought, so I didn't. So I'm guilty, people, but you have to kind of weigh it out. Is it worth it? What they say, pick and choose battles. Sometimes it's best to say nothing. And that's where balance comes in. Personal experience in maintaining a relationship can provide practical insights that single individuals might not have. Someone currently in a healthy relationship might provide advice rooted in real-time dynamics. So that goes back to the question, can single people give relationship advice? And basically they're saying that sometimes when the person, if the person is in a relationship and having a fiance, having a steady girlfriend or a guy friend is a relationship, they have someone in their life, they are more apt to give more insight and provide more rooted real-time dynamics to whatever's going on than a person who does not have another person in their life. So I think I would agree with that balance. I'm saying that if you can be single, and if you have emotional intelligence and wisdom and knowledge, you can get that advice. But a person in a relationship is more apt to receive it from someone else that is also in a relationship. It doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It's just how they're looking at it. They feel more comfortable with someone who is already in a relationship, giving more insightful perspective to whatever that situation is. Would you agree, Mikki?
Yes, and I was also thinking when you said that, if this person has a good track record that's coming to you with advice, if they've tried certain methods in their relationships, past relationships that seem to work, because sometimes they're not the common denominator, maybe it's the other person, or they just grew apart, whatever that was. But if they have a tried and true method that worked for them and they see that it might be applicable to your relationship, then I think by all means, if they have that kind of relationship with you, then they should be able to share that with you.
I agree. Absolutely. Ultimately, the quality of relationship advice is determined by the giver's understanding, empathy, and experience, not necessarily their relationship status. So basically, we are saying it could go either way. You can be a single person with emotional intelligence, have understanding, lots of empathy and experience because you once were or maybe have been in your life in a relationship or so, one or many. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're single. You can't give that advice. You absolutely can give advice to people in relationships. And I wanted to talk about that today. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening to GAB, Goldnbronze GAB, about relationship advice and the Karens.
Yes. Those Karens.
Yes.
You have to look inside and check yourself on that one. People.
Yeah. Yes. So I tell you, real life Karens don't always insert themselves into other people's business. Those are usually the people that feel privileged.
Right.
Those are the ones. And then they call the men Kens, believe it or not. They call them Kens, the men that, because there's some of them out there that will do the same. They'll get all up in somebody else's business when it's none of theirs at all.
Yeah. Well, we extend our love to the people who are named Karen. I'm so sorry that there's a tag Karen. Yeah. The real Karen. Right. No offense to the real Karens. It's just a name.
No offense to the real Karens. Right?
No offense to the real Karens. We welcome all Karens with that name.
Let's call them Glendas or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know how that happened. They got that name. Let's do some research on that. How did they end up with all the names there could be? They ended up with that name. Yeah.
I don't know. That's something worth looking into for sure.
Right. Well, I think it was a fun topic to have. And the relationship topic kind of feeds into our brand as well and helps people to understand relationships and giving of advice and the receiving of it from the giver, to be more open-minded to people that are not in a relationship, offering advice to others that are, if they see something that's not quite normal, they can very well have the same knowledge and wisdom as someone in a relationship. And so we appreciate you listening to us today. I appreciate your stopping by to see what we're gabbing about. I know that you could have been anywhere else doing anything else, but you decided to tune in to Gab with Goldnbronze, and we really do appreciate it very, very much.
Okay, well, I'm so glad we had this conversation. It's so enlightening, and I enjoy gabbing with you about various subjects. So this was a good one. I'm glad we did it. So I will have some housekeeping things regarding Golden Swan Cadre, which GAB with Goldnbronze is a sponsor. So I'm going to instruct you as to how to donate to Golden Swan Cadre. So first, on Chime, you enter $ Golden Swan Cadre. The G, the S, and the C are all uppercase letters. That will help you find us accurately. PayPal, go to thegoldswancadre@gmail.com for that one. our website, www.goldnbronze.com. Or you may go through social media, such as Instagram, and you go to the charity section and find the official _Goldn Swan Cadre. Also, Facebook, you go to the charity section and find Goldn Swan Cadre. Thank you in advance for helping us make a positive impact on the lives of many women, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mikki G, for those words. I appreciate you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And so again, I want to thank you all. Come back and see us tomorrow. She told you, Monday through Friday. We'll be right here on the DuPont TV network, gabbing about something else. So check us out. We appreciate it. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.